I had this kind of happy life on paper, but I was a fat, depressed cokehead whose life was just a fucking mess. I remember that young version of myself. He could have been anything and he chose to be nothing. I remember feeling anything for so long because I was numbing myself with cocaine all the time. I was a drug dealer for about 15 years.
Drug addict, dealer, prison to now
Comedian. Yep.
Fucking crazy.
It's wild how much my life was different. When I laughed, I would forget that I was in prison. I would forget about the fences and the cameras, and I was free just for a few minutes. My life has completely changed because I decided in Long Bay Jail that I was going to become a stand-up comedian. What I've realized about addiction is that it doesn't have to always be bad things. If you find positive outlets for an addictive personality, then you can do great things with it. If you can make someone laugh, you can change their heart, you can change their mind. The fact that laughter is fearless and can survive in even dark places.
Increases all those good chemicals in the body. So you look like you're in a natural high all the time.
Yeah, I love it. Everyone's laughing about it, all having a good time laughing at my dumb life.
It's interesting that when I looked in the back end of our YouTube channel and it says 95% of you that watch it frequently haven't yet hit the subscribe button. So I have a small favor to ask. If you've ever watched this channel and enjoyed the content, please, can I ask you a small favor? Please hit the subscribe button. It honestly helps this channel more than I can explain. And I promise you, if you do that, I will return the favor. We will make this show better and better. That's a promise that I'm willing to make if you press the subscribe button. Do we have a deal? Andrew Hamilton, welcome to the Betar Project. I think we're just going to start it off here, man. Roll straight into it.
Let's do it.
Man, fuck. I've been pumped for this all day because I feel like, as I mentioned before, we're going to have a deep conversation about life, but we're going to bring some humor to it. And
sure,
you're a funny dude.
Am I?
Well, you're meant to be anyway.
Doing my best.
Man, I want to start by asking, generally, how are you today? Because it's a conversation that gets kind of brushed and it's automated responses. Yeah, good. How's it going? Living life. Dude, how are you?
I'm awesome, dude. Yeah, I'm probably at around the best I've ever been in my entire life.
Really?
Right now. Yeah. I love my life. I get to sunbake and exercise and do stand-up comedy most nights and write jokes, and I'm writing a book. And yeah, so I'm happy inside myself and outside. It's a fun. It's probably the most fun time to be me in my life. And I like who I am becoming, which for a long time I didn't like who I was, and so that's cool as well.
I can feel the energy, bro. To think that you get to talk shit for a living, man, and you're loving life.
I get to get up on stage and say dick jokes at night to strangers and try and make them laugh, and that's for money, and that's pretty fun.
For people who don't know who you are, what's the earliest context that we need to know about Andrew to better understand the man that sits in front of us today?
Sure. So I've been doing comedy now for about just over a year and a half, and I started doing stand-up after I got out of prison. I was in prison in 2021 in maximum security remand for 4 months on charges of large commercial drug supply of magic mushrooms and acid and the supply of MDMA, ketamine and cocaine. And I was a drug dealer for about 15 years, mostly magic mushrooms for most of that. But then towards the last few years, it had branched out into all those other drugs I just mentioned. And so, I was living in Surrey Hills. I was engaged. I was living in a great, beautiful townhouse. I had a pizza restaurant that was going really well. I had, I had this kind of happy life on paper, but I was a fat, depressed cokehead whose life was just a fucking mess. And that all changed when I got my house raided by the cops and sent to prison. And now I'm doing stand-up comedy. So it's been a pretty wild ride the last 2 years, and it still doesn't feel real. I still got to pinch myself that I'm going to wake up from this, and because it just seems crazy that now I get to do stand-up comedy about my insane life beforehand, and now I'm trying to figure out, now I've done that kind of show, what else I can talk about as a comedian.
It's crazy how people underestimate how much things can change in a short amount of time. That's been 2-3 years, and you've gone from drug addict, dealer, prison to now
comedian. Yeah,
fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. Just how much my life was different. My house got raided on the 4th of June 2021. So yeah, that's like for 2.5 years almost, and I'm just a completely different person in pretty much every way, and I guess I would say that's probably a change for the better in virtually every way. I certainly think I'm a much better friend and family member and human being. So yeah, it was probably me going to prison was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
Talk to me about your upbringing. Like, what do you feel led you down the path that you went down?
I mean, just my own stupid decisions. Really, I had a good upbringing. I was one of 5 kids. I had a happy upbringing. My parents sent me to a private school. You know, I would say I came from a privileged upbringing, and I just liked drugs and I liked gambling, and I became a drug addict and a gambling addict. And I was my friend was growing and selling mushrooms, and we were selling them because no one else had them, and so it felt good to me to be kind of this connect to help people to party. I enjoyed being that guy, the facilitator of fun, and it helped me to fund my own gambling addiction and to keep digging myself out of the hole when I'd fuck up. So yeah, that's how I kind of normalized it in my head that gambling was just this toxic thing that's legal and was destroying me. And so the laws in Australia and New South Wales didn't make sense to me. So I was like, fuck them, I'll make my own rules. And so, yeah, over time, that went from me just selling mushrooms to friends and friends of friends to being, I call myself the Mushroom King of Sydney, which I don't know if that was 100% true, but certainly whenever I spoke to anyone who had mushroom caps anywhere in Sydney, they always found a way to trace it back to me. So, yeah, there was mushrooms and then all the other drugs, but Coke was really the one that fucked me up the most. Just having it sitting around the house in just such large quantities. I could have all the other drugs, mushrooms, acid, MDMA around, and I wasn't having them every single day. But Coke, I just couldn't stop myself from having it every day.
What was it about it?
I liked the feeling. I liked, it's so addictive. And, so whether it was a good occasion or a bad occasion, anything that happened to me, I would find an excuse to take cocaine, right? And particularly if I've had a few drinks. If I've had 4 beers in me, always going to have Coke. But yeah, anything that happened, I'd be like, oh, I'll just have a couple of bumps. And the next thing you know, I'm up for 4 days just doing bag after bag after bag. But it didn't matter because I was making so much money from selling drugs that it didn't matter. If I put 10 grand of Coke up my nose, it didn't matter because I was making 30 grand that week. So I was like, who cares?
When it comes to addiction, I believe there's always a deeper reasoning behind you going down that path. Have you ever sat and thought, like, why did I get addicted to these things? Were you feeling some sort of void?
Yeah, I think I was just a pretty lonely person. I had pushed away a lot of friends from just being a massive drinker and a bit of a brawler. And I think I was just a massive underachiever that didn't find my place in the world. And so I found that the best way to fill that emptiness was through drugs and gambling, just to distract myself from the fact that I didn't like my shitty life. And so then the problem with that is it just creates a shittier life that you need to continue. The hole gets bigger and you just keep trying to fill it with an even bigger amount of addiction.
Never-ending cycle.
Yeah. So then you're just sitting next to the precipice of this gaping hole that you're trying to fill with a mountain of gambling and cocaine. And then eventually you fall into that hole and you end up in prison. So that's the way it went for me.
Why do you feel like you're an underachiever? What did you want to achieve when you were growing up in?
I don't know. I mean, I was very gifted athletically when I was in primary school, and then by the time I got to high school, I thought it was better to be the class clown and not really apply myself both academically or in sport. So, I was full of potential, and I decided to squander it. And I think that was the same when I got older. I never really knew what I wanted to be, and never worked really hard. Even when I worked in public relations, and I was good at that, but I wouldn't say I ever fully applied myself in an average day. I don't think I ever think I would have exceeded over 50 or 60% effort in a day in my life. And so I guess, and part of that's just because it just wasn't stimulating enough. I've got ADHD, and I think, with those kind of things, if you find the right thing to apply it to, you can be very good. But otherwise, you just find yourself very distracted and unsettled. And I think that's the way I was for most of my life. It's only now with comedy that I really find myself obsessed with it. It's like an addiction itself, and that's kind of cool, because what I've realized about addiction is that it doesn't have to always be bad things. If you find positive outlets for an addictive personality, then you can do great things with it.
Were you criticized as a child for having ADHD, like especially now in the school system? Like,
I was diagnosed with it when I was about 8 years old, but at the time, it wasn't interfering with my classwork. So the doctors told my parents there was no need for me to have any medication or treatment. So the thing was, I would go into class and I'd smash all my classwork, and then I would just distract everyone else, which is, I think, probably a pretty common thing.
yeah.
It wasn't until I was about 16, year 10, that I started to really notice that I was having trouble with my concentration. And I told my parents, and they were like, oh yeah, you've got ADHD. I didn't even know. And so I started getting medicated then, and I had like 10 dexamphetamine tablets every day. I'd have a few in the morning, then I'd have to go to the school infirmary, like the medical ward at lunchtime, to get my rest, the rest of my dexamphetamines, and I would just sit in class and I could concentrate. Absolutely, I could concentrate, but I was grinding my teeth like a speed freak. I had no appetite. I'd lay in bed at night and my brain would just be racing because I was so high on these fucking drugs. And so I only had those for, my senior high school years, and then I stopped taking it. I probably should take some kind of medication now, because I do really struggle with my concentration. I just try and find ways to kind of hack it and just to work around it, but it's difficult. But part of me, I'm just so sick of my body being affected by drugs one way or another after just being a drug addict for so long, that I find it, I'm very reluctant to go and get some kind of medical treatment for ADHD now.
What's a piece of advice you give to someone struggling with ADHD and concentration? Do you have any tips that you always go to?
I mean, as I said, I'm not getting medicated for it, so I'm not an expert. Maybe I should be going and getting medicated, but I just know for the things that help me are exercise. Absolutely, I have to start if I can get into a regime, I find that is the best way. If I can break up the day into certain pockets, when I'm like, okay, exercise, shower, coffee, read the news for 30 minutes, then bang, I'm into my emails for 30 minutes, then work, and just try and break it into these little bits where I can maintain focus.
Yeah, that structure as well.
Yeah, exactly. If I try and just do something for 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours, I'm never going to do it. But if I break it into, this is a problem I have to solve, this is a thing I need to do in a 1 hour block, then my brain's like, okay, I can do that for 1 hour. And so I just try and keep it interesting for myself.
Yeah, I think it's so important that we have that structure in our life, especially with someone who struggles with ADHD. Like, you're fucking yo-yo in place to place. So you need to have that structure, but also freedom within it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Because if you're so bound on a structure, like this is to the T, you're not going to want to go with that either. Because
totally.
Just like school, you would have been like, stuff this.
Yeah, it's got to be stuff that interests me, and I got to do it in bite-sized ways where I can maintain the focus. But, I'm still learning every day on best ways to live with it. I don't have all the answers. I'll probably die only half figuring it out. So yeah, I don't know. But maybe one of these days I'll go and try medication again and see if that helps. Because I know it does help a lot of people. They say it's suddenly they're able to focus more than they've ever been able to in their life.
Yeah, I have mixed emotions when it comes to medication, especially with kids. Like, you go to school and so many kids are on these medications, and it's numbing them. Like, they're not actually being able to be kids.
Yeah.
Like, that's a whole rabbit hole.
I'm glad I was not on it till I was 16. But it wasn't really affecting me, I don't think, too much until then. That was when I started to really notice that I just couldn't maintain focus. But I guess that's how I feel now, to be honest. So maybe I need to. Maybe they've made. That was 20 years ago. So maybe they've made some advances in the treatment and the medication.
Does that do you kind of beat yourself up sometimes when you trying to concentrate but you can't?
Nah, I'm just so used to it, man.
Yeah.
If there's a day, some days I'll try and get stuff done, and I'll just have a day where I only get like 90 minutes of stuff done, and I'm like, I'm annoyed, I'm discouraged, but then I just have to remember tomorrow's a new day and just attack it better tomorrow, or just try and learn. Okay, well, you don't I set myself up for failure by not having my phone on plane mode, something like that. Just try and get rid of the distractions, and then I suddenly can be better at the work.
Talk to me about the fat guy that was doing cocaine every day. How did you feel about yourself in that moment, especially knowing that you're kind of living a life of lies? Have you reflected on that?
I guess I don't reflect on it too much or too regularly, but I just know that, at that point, health-wise, I wasn't in a great place, and I just didn't like the guy I saw in the mirror at all. And, I had a whole bunch of fake friends around me, and, it was just a pretty shallow, hollow existence that went on for way too long, and it was probably, I was very lucky that things changed, because now my life is just so much better. But yeah, it was a hot mess.
Were you actually feeling in that, like, in this time of your life, or wasn't until prison where you had the
I wasn't
detox?
feeling anything for so long, because I was numbing myself with cocaine all the time for everything, and any kind of feeling that I could possibly have, I never had. I escaped them all by cocaine. So when I was in prison, it actually felt good to feel shit, because I was just like, oh, that's what this feels like. It had been so long since I'd actually felt feeling that even the bad feelings felt good, because they were so raw, and I had to face them. And I was just like, wow, I'd forgotten what this feels like, to just feel and to live. And then I was left with, okay, you're feeling this shit feeling. It's not good. What are you going to do about it? And that was, I guess, the start of my journey in thinking about how I was going to change my life when I got out.
What were some of those real and raw feelings and emotions that came up? Were you like, oh, shit?
Oh, just anger, confusion. My fiance had a mental breakdown and told the cops that I was a drug dealer, and that got me raided. So I guess
women.
First I blamed her, then I realized it's actually my fault, because I'd introduced her to cocaine. It was all my fault in the end. I was the one that was breaking the law. So then you start to blame yourself, then you blame yourself for being an idiot for getting caught in the first place. The last thing you do is, it takes a long time for you to start thinking, okay, well, the blame's on me because I did it all, because I was a criminal and I need to change. That takes a while. It's not day one that you have those kind of conversations with yourself. But so you go through the blame game, then you go through the anger. You feel the loss, because my dogs got rehomed, and I lost my fiance, left me, and I lost my home and my business. So there's just blow after blow after blow, and so you just this cocktail of feelings that were mostly negative, but then I guess some of my optimism started to kick in, and I just thought, well, what are we going to do about this? Because this is not the end of the story. And so I guess being in jail and just being around when funny stuff would happen regularly, and when I laughed, I would forget that I was in prison. I would forget about the fences and the guards and the cameras, and I was free just for a few minutes. And so I was just like, holy shit, laughter is pretty powerful if it can make me forget that I'm in prison. And that made me remember that I'd always wanted to do stand-up comedy when I was younger, and I used to go all the time to stand-up comedy shows, but I was too much of a pussy to try it, and I didn't think I'd be any good, and I didn't think I had anything to talk about. And then suddenly when I was locked up, I just started seeing humor in all these things around me, and started writing jokes, and started making, then I made a promise to myself that when I got out, I'd start doing stand-up about my life. And I don't know what it was, but there was just something in my head, because I had two options. I could either get out. I'd been working a white-collar job previously. I'd been working in public relations, and I was good at that. I could either go out and get out of prison and try and get a job in that again, which I'm sure I didn't think would have been too hard, and try and sweep this under the rug, because at that point there was only one news article about my arrest. It was in the Daily Mail, which I was hoping people might have missed. So I had the option of either trying to do that and pretend it never happened, or get on stage every night and start saying, hey, I went to prison for drugs and I'm going to do jokes about it. And It seemed like such a crazy idea that for some reason I just knew it would work. It was like, I don't know how to describe it. It seemed like it was the most insane thing I could do. And so something in me said, this will work. And I did. Yeah. It completely changed my life.
You just believed in yourself.
It was more than that. It was just, it was just, I believed in something. I don't know. It wasn't just myself. It was just like there was something, I don't know whether it was God or whether we're living in a video game or I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Just something was telling me in me, this is fucking nuts and it's going to work. Go and do it. And I did. And now I'm getting paid to do stand-up comedy and traveling around the country, and I've got a book deal coming out. I've got a book coming out, and my life has completely changed because I decided in Long Bay jail that I was going to become a stand-up comedian.
You could have easily outlaid all those negative emotions in the prison system and landed more time there.
Totally. I mean, when I first got pinched, I was just always thinking about how to get my drug business running as soon as I got back out. I thought I was only going to be in for a few weeks to start with. And then when it got into a few months, I thought, okay, I might be in here for a few years. And I guess that was the point where I started thinking, okay, we are done with the drug business. But yeah, I mean, there's so many guys that go in and they come out as just better criminals, and there's nothing about it that stops them from wanting to do crime. It's not, for most guys, it's not a huge disincentive, the actual time in prison. For me, it was more the impact of me going to jail on my friends and family. That was the bit which I hadn't anticipated. I guess I'd always been prepared. You do the crime, you do the time. I was prepared to do whatever whack. I thought I was going to be in there for a few years. But I had been so selfish, and you don't realize the impact that has on the people that care about you. And so that was probably the biggest driving force in me wanting to change. And there's a lot of guys that go to jail and they come out, they don't have a support network. They don't have that, their friends and family are already in jail. There's not enough of a thing to push them to say, you have to change. And the time in prison for a lot of guys it's not the punishment that changes behavior, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. I had a very similar story myself around, it just takes a moment for you to make a change in your life. It's like, for me, a couple of years back, I was in university, hated it, felt so lost and stuck. And all it took for me was have you heard of Gary Vaynerchuk before?
Yep, Gary V.
Yep, Gary V. So he came to Australia in 2019, I think it was. And I just started following him. I was like, I need to buy it. There was something in me, like same feeling as you, is I need to go to this event. I went to that event, sat in the crowd. I was like, imagine if I could do something like this. And then that day I made the promise to myself to not care what other people think. Don't care about judgment. Just do what you want to do with your life. And podcast started, and it's grown from there. It's just by, these weird feelings that come over you, and you have to make that decision because you don't know, but you just believe that everything's going to work out the way it's meant to work out. And it does. Well, why are people so scared to take that risk?
I mean, for a million reasons, man. The fear of failure, fear of being judged, just lack of self-belief. There's so many reasons, and all they need to do is just make a start. Just start doing it. Don't think about all that stuff. Just start doing it, and next thing you know, you'll look behind you and you'll be like, "Holy shit, I've already made it this far," and then it becomes harder to stop. Right? Well, if you just create a bit of momentum, then that can be a very, very dangerous thing in a good way, because then you're like, holy shit, now the fear of failure is the fear of stopping. I'm going to keep going until I fucking show everyone and kick some ass. Like for me, right now, if I had started doing comedy and it didn't go immediately well and I was already posting stuff on social media about it, I'd be like, fuck, now this is embarrassing. I've got to keep going until I get good. You know? I can't pull out now.
Was it that fear of failure when you were that young kid? You're like, I want to do stand-up, but you just didn't pursue it?
I mean, I think a lot of people are terrified about the idea of doing stand-up comedy or anything in front of a microphone.
Public speaking is probably the number one fear. I think they did a study. It's people fear public speaking more than death.
Right, exactly. And then imagine on top of that, you also have to speak into the microphone, but then you also got to get laughs. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where you don't know how to get started. Even if you want to do it, you think it's terrifying, too much work. You don't know how to get started. You don't know anyone that does it. There's so many reasons that in your head where you can create obstacles. If you don't want to do something, you'll come up with 10. If you're terrified of doing something, you'll come up with 10 reasons why you can't do it. And the truth is, if you want to change your life, you got to break down every one of those reasons and just fucking do it.
When it comes to your book and stuff like that, were there reasonings or things holding you back from doing that? Or you're like, nah, I'm going to...
From writing the book?
Yeah, writing the book, or any other challenges?
Not really, because I didn't really think about it. I just wrote the book. I just wrote 1,000 words a day. I read a book by Stephen King on how to write called Stephen King on Writing. And he recommended just writing 1,000 words a day. And so when I would just wake up in the morning, my ritual would be to train and then have a coffee, and I just write 1,000 words a day. And sometimes it was easy, sometimes it was hard, but I'd always stop at 1,000. And then my brain, my subconscious would be thinking about it overnight, and the next day I'd write the next 1,000. And 70 days later, I had 70,000 words. And so it was that simple. And so now I've got probably, I don't know, a bit over half a book written, and I've just got to finish that. And then hopefully it's not dog shit and people want to read it.
Well, if it's anything like your story, bro, it's going to be fucking good. So I look forward to it.
Thank you. It's been fun writing it so far. So yeah, well, I've got to figure out a good ending for it. But yeah, my life has completely changed in a crazy way, and I love talking to people about it, and I love being able to get up on stage in front of total strangers and just make them laugh. And particularly when I'm a convicted drug dealer and I went and did jail time, people have preconceived notions about that kind of stuff, and if you can make them laugh, you can change their mind. I'm a big convinced about that. I'm a big believer in that. Is if you can make someone laugh, you can change their heart, you can change their mind.
Talk to me about that first time hopping up on stage. Were you obviously shitting yourself?
I was, absolutely. I went to an open mic comedy night in Lewisham called Crown Comedy at the Louis Hotel, and I had to bring my mum because my bail conditions were that I wasn't allowed out of the house unless I was in the company of my parents.
Well, at least you had an automatic cheer, right?
Right? I had a friend, an ally in the audience. So I went along, and it was a Thursday night, and what they do is a thing at these open mic comedy nights called a bucket pull, which is when everyone's name goes in the bucket, and then they pull them out randomly for your turn. And sometimes, 30, 40 comedians can turn up, and everyone's getting 5 minutes. So if you do the math, it can be a very long night. However, I had a bail curfew of 10, of like, was it 9, maybe 9:30, 10 p.m. So I had to ask, not only with my first time doing comedy, but I also had to ask if I could go on early because I had to be home for my curfew. And so, I mean, that's not an immediately great way to start making friends in comedy, to be like, hey man, look, I know I've just rocked up, but can I push in front of everyone on the line as well? But I explained that I was because of my curfew, and everyone thought that was so fucking funny that they were like, let him go early. So I got up and I had 5 minutes of jokes that I'd written, and in my head I'd memorize them, and I'd been at home rehearsing. And I got up and I just started talking, and I wasn't really performing. I would say I was performing. I was just regurgitating these words that I'd memorized, and then they started getting laughs. And as soon as you start getting laughs, if you were doing public speaking and you were getting laughs, you might be worried, but people are laughing at you. But when you're doing comedy and you just get this wash of relief, it felt so good to start getting laughs. And then that instantly makes you relax a bit more. And so my first time doing it was, I went great. And it also I got the bug straight away. I was like, this feels so much fun. And then I had a bunch of comedians come up to me and tell me how awesome they thought my set was and to keep doing it. And so I kept going. There's open mic comedy nights on in Sydney like 4 or 5 nights a week. So there's enough that you can get up multiple times a week and just try it. What I noticed was that most of these shows, there's no audience. It's just other comedians. And so they're all the same ones you saw the other night, the night before and the night before. So if you're doing the same jokes, you're doing the same jokes to the same audience of guys who are like memorizing jokes on their phone. They're pissed off because they've made it nowhere in comedy in 5 years. They're not really mentally inclined to laugh at your jokes unless they're really fucked up or something like that. So it's a very weird training ground to first start comedy in. But so that's why I kept writing like a new 5 minutes every night to try and do, just to try and get a genuine reaction out of these guys. And so that, I guess, was a pretty good way of me just throwing myself into it by having to write and write and write, but also to try and memorize jokes and perform and just get used to the discipline of comedy, which is it's a completely different world to anything I'd ever known.
Have you thought about wanting to start a podcast, but you just didn't know where to start? The thought of buying all that equipment, setting it up, recording, and then having to edit it all became all too overwhelming and probably deterred you from even wanting to start. Well, what if I told you there was a one-stop shop for all your podcasting needs? All you had to do is come in, record, and everything was taken care of for you. Well, let me introduce you to the Betar Media Podcast Studio. High quality audio, video, and lighting to allow you to get the most bang for your buck. That all sounds amazing, right? You could get your podcast up and running like tomorrow. So why don't you? So what are you waiting for? Let's take action on this thought. Let's make it a reality. Contact us today. I'm now offering a complimentary 30-minute session so you can come in and experience it for yourself. See you soon. You got to be authentic. As I said, so many people are memorizing the same joke over and over again, but they're not incorporating new materials, and they may have stolen that joke from someone else. Like, you just don't know. You got to be authentic. And
that's let alone just being jokes that are authentic to them. Sometimes people are saying stuff like wank jokes, or like, they're doing a joke about fucking the imploding submarine, or like Israel Palace. They're just doing like whatever they saw in the news, rather than like, hey, what's funny to you? What's your view on the world? What makes you different? Like, there's so many things of that which make for a much, much better, funnier joke that people can take a while to tap into. But that's okay, because look, the two things happen at a comedy show, particularly open mics. You either do your jokes and you bomb, they don't go well, and that hurts, and you learn from that and you get better, or you don't get it, you think the audience are wrong for not laughing at your jokes, and you continue to suck and you go nowhere. So they're the two options. Either you calibrate and you keep calibrating until you become really good, or you just tone deaf to the fact that your jokes suck and you never do anything about it.
What's the next step for you? Obviously, you can't live on the prison jokes forever. Is it for you getting more life experience than integrating that into the comedy?
Well, my dad always says I should go back to prison to get more material, right? So we're not ruling that out. Look, I'm working on that at the moment. I just did a show for the Sydney Fringe Festival called Andrew Hamilton Doesn't Mention Prison, which was kind of a joke about that, because everyone's always like, well, what else has he got to talk about? But that's something I'm figuring out at the moment. It's been fun. Like, I'm only a year and a half into comedy, and I've already done a whole hour solo show at the festivals that did great and sold out and got me nominated for Best Newcomer at Melbourne Comedy Festival, which was pretty wild considering I was only a year into comedy at the time. So yeah, I'm not putting too much pressure on myself about figuring that out. I know that these things take time, and I'm still figuring out my voice. But I just try and write most days at least one new joke, and I'll test them out. And it's a matter of just trial and error. And that's the kind of the process that I'm really enjoying at the moment.
Have you written a joke today so far?
I did write one. I got a nugget of an idea about the idea of a muse. When like musicians back in the day in like the 60s, and artists would have these muses, like essentially like scantily clad or naked women that would hang around them and inspire them to create art. And they'd have sex with these women. And I was just thinking, like, that's really, like, no one does that anymore. And I think we need to bring that back, because I think I myself would be more creative if I had hot naked women around me. And that's what I'm playing around with. But I'm finding that a hard pitch to say to a girl, look, we're not going to be in a relationship. I'm just going to have sex with you, and I'll create jokes out of that. I'll create art. Do you think girls are going to be keen on that? I'm not sure, but yeah. So that's the Nick. That's the idea. I'm not seeing you laughing, so I'm like, okay,
Andrew Hamilton sex scandal.
So that's the kind of concept I'm going to try and write some punchlines for.
Are you going to live it out though?
Am I going to live it out? Absolutely not. No.
Well, that's boring.
No. This is just me talking. Most of my jokes are about the stupid ideas that I have in my head that I entertain, but would never be a reality.
I don't think you'd ever be bored. You're just in your head fucking creating jokes like that.
No, I'm never bored. No, even in jail, I was not really bored very often. I'd find ways to entertain myself.
Did you bring up comedy in jail or no? Chase your stats or something?
Oh, you make jokes with your cellmates, but you weren't like out in the yard holding court like, hey, boys, gather around. I got something for you. Because if you say the wrong thing to the wrong person, you offended someone, they can take it the wrong way and that can go pear-shaped pretty quickly. What'd you say, motherfucker?
Overall, that prison experience, what would you rate it? Like, I know it's a bad thing, but for you, like, you're such a positive mindset about it. Like,
It saved my life. I had a good time. I got treated great by pretty much everyone in there. I trained. I got off drugs. I wrote. I read books, and in a weird way, I found it quite stress free because you don't have to worry about rent and paying bills and all this kind of stuff. You're just in there. Prison is just a waste of time. It's a waste of your time. That's what it's meant to be there for. But I found it a tool for cleaning myself up, having time to reflect, and driving me to change to become a better person. So yeah, I think, obviously I only did 4 months, and there's people that go in there for many, many years, and some come out better, a lot don't. So I can only talk to my experience, but for me, it worked. It helped me to become a better person.
From your experience, it sounds like you just described the P&O cruise ship.
Essentially, probably
around the beach.
Yeah, about the same, but with a few guys that are probably funnier and better looking than most people you see on a cruise ship.
True. Do you have empathy for those guys in there? Like, I heard you mention like there's just a lot of lost souls.
Totally. Yeah, there's so many guys in there that you just feel like they were always meant to be in there. They were always destined to be in there because of their upbringing and their environment. And that's what made me feel like an even bigger cockhead for entering up there because, I had such a privileged upbringing that I was only in there because of it was entirely my own fault. But there's guys that you see in there, and I think the writing was probably on the wall from a very young age. So, there's so much struggle and poverty and addiction, and I try to help guys writing letters because there was just such poor literacy in there. You just see a lot of guys that are in there that they've had a rough life from day one, and so all you can do is pity them because they're just poor bastards that just need a bit of compassion and a leg up and maybe some opportunity, and maybe their life would be something completely different.
So you did not belong there at all, like for your
crimes. Well,
yes,
yeah, I definitely belong there for my crimes, but yeah, I definitely felt like I felt like I stuck out because there was so many guys that just had a rough upbringings that had led them to there, and I was just there because of my own dumb decisions.
And like you lost everything essentially, but you gained so much more, like getting back to the basics, being in the present moment, reflecting, getting off drugs, figuring out who you are, what you want to do in life. Like, yes, you lost everything, but you fucking gained so much out of that.
Well, I lost everything that I thought I valued. There's stuff like that you just don't need, like stuff. You don't need
material
stuff.
shit.
Yeah, you don't need stuff, man. Like, there was just so many things that I lost that I thought I needed, but then I realized as I sat there in a cell with just nothing except my own naked ass, so just my own body, I was like, okay, well, let's start with that. Like just having your health is what an asset. Not everyone has that. And so I started to try and look after that better. And I found exercise and sunlight were just two things which I had neglected for so long that just completely changed my mental health. So, friendships, family, you're looking after your mind, all these things that, I now focus on that make me so much happier. And a lot of them don't cost anything. It doesn't cost anything to look after your body and to and to be a compassionate friend and good human being and a better friend or lover. And so, yeah, I feel very fortunate that I had that rough time where I had to face myself in the mirror and be like, you are not a good person. It is time to do something else.
Who did you truly see in the mirror then to them now?
I just saw a broken soul. I just saw a very lost man who had lost his way, and it made me think about just, when I was just a young kid, when I was happy and full of potential and funny and a good friend, and I remember that young version of myself and just think like he could have been anything and he chose to be nothing. And so yeah, having that time to reflect and just be like, it's not too late. It's not too late to start again. It's not too late to change and try to be closer to that young kid that had all that promise so long ago. And so I just started that as soon as I got out. I started doing that. I started by doing everything to look good for the courts. Obviously, I was doing drug counseling and I was doing clean urine tests, but then I was exercising, and then I started listening to podcasts about comedy and trying to understand a bit more about how it worked in the Australian and Sydney comedy scene. And yeah, just started taking small steps. I got a job. I was working a kind of a day job from home. I was very lucky that, a lot of guys don't have the friends and the privileges that I had. I was offered a job within about 10 days of getting released from prison. And so, I'm not, that's not lost on me that I had I had a home to go to. Well, my parents when I got bail, they let me come and live with them. And so I had all this support network that has helped me to rehabilitate myself. And a lot of guys don't have that, that support network. And that can make such a big difference in someone's ability to go onto a better path or end up continually in a cycle of crime.
Talk to me about comedy. What do you love about it? Like, what's the thing that keeps drawing you back? Is it the audience? What is it?
There's obviously the biggest part is just making rooms of strangers laugh. I love the effect that laughter has on me. I love the effect that laughter has on other people. I get so many messages from people talking to me about just the positive impact my comedy has had on them, particularly when they've been having a rough time. So that means the world. But then there's also just the comedy community is just, I find to be such a large group of generous souls. I mean, most of these people spend most of their nights trying to make people laugh for virtually no money. And if you're doing that, you have to, have something wrong with you, right? Have something wrong with you, like myself. But you also have to believe in something, which is that there is something magical in the power of laughter. That's what I believe, that it can save a life, that it can help you to see brighter days ahead. And so I'm completely in love with it, and I hope that this love affair continues for the rest of my life, because it was probably one of the most important things that saved me in prison was just laughing. You're like, what am I doing laughing in Long Bay Jail or Parklea Prison over some dumb joke? And you're like, this doesn't seem like the place I should be laughing. And so the fact that laughter is fearless and can survive in even dark places, you're like, well, it seemed like something that I wanted to dedicate my life to.
Increases all those good chemicals in the body. That's why you look like you're on a natural high all the time.
Yeah, I love it. I love laughing. Yeah. It's my favorite thing to do is just dick around with friends and make each other laugh. And that's now I'm privileged enough to get to do that on a microphone most nights. Just say whatever fucked up things are going on in my head and try and make people laugh. It's cool.
Yeah, and it's so true what you say around the audience. It allows them to kind of take a step back from their life, to go to a comedy show, to laugh, to increase all those happy hormones. Like, because I'm sure I've seen some of that. There was a really rough time in your life where you thought about checking out.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like? Like,
I mean, I don't even really think about it anymore. But yeah, there was plenty of times where I was in a dark place, mostly through gambling, where I just wanted to end it. And so, yeah, I think I tried for so long to try and fill this emptiness I had inside me with the wrong things: drugs, gambling, alcohol. And it didn't work, and it just made the hole bigger, and it made me darker. And yeah, there were times where I was very lost and did think about ending it. And now I'm just at the complete opposite of the end of the spectrum, because I feel like I live a life with purpose, and that gives me a reason to get up in the morning, and it gives me a reason to stay off drugs, and it gives me a reason to stay away from gambling, and it's just completely given me a new lease on life. And so, yeah, I find fulfillment and just staying busy, they're the things that I just try and do, because I'm not too good with having free time. I'm more likely to start to make bad decisions. So I just try and stay busy, and just try and stay busy doing stuff that I really enjoy doing. And so most people spend their nights, they go home from a long day at work and they're sitting at home and they watch Netflix and they're doing nothing. Whereas every night, if I'm at home, I'm like, fuck, well, what comedy shows are on? Where can I go make some people laugh? And so that's, I'm out there most nights, and I love doing that much more than sitting at home just watching TV. I get much more fulfillment out of doing that.
I'm curious, when it comes to humor, would you say it's a bit of a coping mechanism for you? Like, is there anything deeper beyond that where you continue to use humor to kind of not think about it?
I don't think so. No, I don't think it's as deep as that. I think it's just in my DNA. I'm just a happy-go-lucky guy. I'm an eternal optimist, and I just love having fun, and I love laughing. I don't think it's trying to be a coping mechanism. I think it's just what I was put on God's green earth to do, is to laugh and try and make other people laugh. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, because you got people like yourself, and then you got other people that are life of the party. On the outside, they look like they're so happy and stuff like that, but down deep, they're hurting.
The old Robin Williams thing, that they're just like the dark clown. No, I don't think that I am that. I think that if I had been trying to do comedy like back when I was doing crime, maybe but no, I don't think that is me. I don't think I'm covering up any kind of darkness per se with laughter. But there have been times where I've had a really shit day, and the last thing I feel like doing is doing comedy, and I had to do it because I was booked and for a job. And luckily, the show has helped me, like making people laugh, and then I laugh, and suddenly like the things I was feeling shit about suddenly don't seem so big.
So it's become a handy tool as well.
Handy tool. I mean, that hasn't happened that often, but it just did happen a few weeks ago. Something really shitty happened, and I had to do a show, and I just did not want to do it at all, but I had to do it, and the show went great. I did great, and at the end, like, people coming up to me, and I was like, okay, that actually was a really good thing. It's a similar thing when people force themselves to train, when you have those endorphins from training, when it's the last thing you feel like doing in the world, then you do it, and you go home and you're like, oh, fuck, I'm so glad I did that. It's similar to that.
It's just the discipline to turn it up, and everything changes, bro.
Exactly right.
Okay. If you were to sum up your purpose right now in one sentence or even one word, what would it be?
Merriment. Just, I don't know, man. I just help people to remember that life's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be doom and gloom. We're allowed to have fun. We're allowed to laugh. Sometimes people can get so caught up in their own shit they forget that. And so that's why it's cool when people turn up to comedy shows. Like, why do people go to comedy at all? It's because they appreciate that there is something. There are healing properties to laughter. To not forget about the comics deciding to do it, but if you decide to go with your partner or your mate for a couple of drinks and watching a 2-hour comedy show, that the reason why you've chosen to do that is because, once you go home after you've laughed your ass off a bit, you're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to feel better a bit about whatever shit you're worried about before. You just get to park your worries for a couple of hours, and they're still going to be there when you go home, but maybe it'll just help you to remember that, like, it's not everything.
You get to tap into your inner child as well.
Absolutely.
There's so many people that have, I guess, not the best upbringings, but through humor and stuff like that, they're able to kind of go back and be that child again.
Well, I'm doing jokes about, the New South Wales Organised Crime Squad telling me I had a tiny dick. I mean, who's not going to find that? Everyone's on board with that. Everyone's laughing. We're all having a good time laughing at my dumb life. And so, yeah, absolutely. People get to, we tap into all this kind of. There are clever jokes and there are dumb jokes. Most of my jokes are probably erring towards dumb rather than clever, but we're there as the class clowns trying to make people just laugh their ass off and have fun for a couple of hours.
So just like podcasting, there's a fine art to comedy.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I thought it was just get up on stage and talk shit.
No. You have to figure out, what jokes are going to work for what audience. You have to figure out what jokes are going to work in which order. You could do the exact same 10 minutes worth of jokes, but you do it in a different order and it works. And then you do it in a different order and it doesn't work. Right? So there's so many variables. There's a way that you phrase a joke. There's a way that you emphasize certain words. There's certain things you do in the performance. There's all these kind of things that can make it funnier or less funny. And my job is constantly trying to calibrate that, trying to figure that out because, it's a sweet science to it.
I respect that, man. I respect anyone that puts that much time and effort into their craft. And for you, I'm sure you want to be the best at your craft. You don't want to half-ass it.
No, you want to be the best. You want people to go out of the show going, that guy was the best. He made me laugh. I'm going to follow him on social media. I'm going to tell my friends about him. I'm going to listen to his podcast. And when he has a show, I'm going to come to it. Not, oh, that guy was right. That guy was all right. And then they have no interest in you. I'm trying to make this into a business. And the only way you do that is by doing well.
100%. That's how I came across. Have you heard of Luke Kidgley before?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I came across
huge.
Him on TikTok.
Yeah. So Luke's probably the most, he's doing like the most sales out of any comedian in the country. He's killing it. He's a monster.
Yeah. He did a show in Penrith about a couple of months ago. Went to it. Fucking awesome night.
He's a beast. Yeah. He's just selling so many more tickets than anyone else. He's an absolute phenomenon and he's killing it, and he's doing it in a different model. Like to everyone thinks you need to be doing the Melbourne Comedy Festival and all these festival shows, whereas he's just gone out there and built this huge social audience, built his own audience, and then he just goes out and sells out these shows on his own, and he's just shown you can just say fuck you to whatever the rules they think that you need to follow to be successful, and good on him. That's exciting.
Does that inspire you?
Absolutely. Yeah, it should inspire anyone that wants to do comedy to say, hey, you can create your own rules. There's no set pathway to success. Just find your own way, and that's awesome. He's a monster.
Do you have any big goals for comedy, or are you kind of just going with the flow of things at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to just continue to build my audience so I can sell tickets to shows, so I can hopefully build a proper living in the next few years. I like to continue to do the festival shows. I'm trying to work on a new festival show for next year, and just see where this crazy ride goes, man. At the moment, I'm having so much fun with it. I get to do stand up. I have two podcasts. I have a comedy podcast called The Flog Cabin with two other mates in comedy, and then I have my own podcast where I talk to people about times when their life has gone to shit. And then I do Yeah Mad TV, which is this kind of comedy channel, which is probably the fastest growing comedy YouTube channel in the country. And we just sit there and just tell each other dad jokes. And that's the reason why I get recognised everywhere I go. I was at Port Macquarie getting asked for photos at the pub by a whole bunch of like young kids because they all see me do these dumb jokes on the internet.
You're not even a dad yet, mate.
No. And they're not even really dad jokes. They're just inappropriate jokes. They just call them dad jokes, but they're just stupid one-liners. So yeah, it's been a crazy ride, and it's still I'm only a bit over a year and a half into it. So I'm just trying to have fun with it and see where it goes.
What's your favorite joke or your favorite little short set that you can give the listeners?
What's my favorite joke? There's so many. That's a good question. Well, the one I always finish on was that I actually wrote on my poster was that comedy's been going really well for me. I was recently rated as one to watch by the New South Wales Police, and that is some reason that always, it's such a dumb one-liner, but it always gets a laugh, and then it's like written on my poster like one to watch by the New South Wales Police as my reference. And they haven't contacted me yet to be like, hey man, can you take that down? So I'm hoping maybe they've had a conversation about it somewhere and they've approved it.
What's the audience favorite at the moment? Like the one you get the most laughs for? Is it the Tiny Dick one?
I do a lot of jokes about being in court when I got arrested. There's a joke I do. I say, do you guys have any idea how hard it is to sit in court quietly while your legal defense team openly mock your drug operation, calling it pathetic and unsophisticated? And you just got to sit there. The whole time I wanted to jump up and be like, hey, they only got the drugs at my house. They didn't get the stash house. And, because it's just such a wild thing to say, I think I get half the laughs from the joke and then half from the shock value of just someone saying that. But
What the fuck is this guy on about?
I love saying that because it was very cathartic for me to, I guess, make jokes about the mess of my life, to make jokes about the dumb decisions I made and my drug dealing and my time in prison and my arrest, to laugh in the face of what was quite a traumatic period of my life has been hugely, hugely cathartic and relieving for me. And it's worked because people find it funny, I think, because it's real, because it's authentic. And so I've had so many people, particularly old people, I think, are looking at in the audience like, oh, this person hates me. And then they'll come up and they'll be like, mate, really enjoyed that and good on you for turning your life around. And so that's really cool. I thought I was going to get booed the first time I was getting on stage doing jokes about being a drug dealer, but I think because the jokes are funny and I'm making fun of myself, people get that.
It's like the Eminem effect.
What's that?
Talking shit about yourself.
Oh, yeah, a bit like that. Yeah, exactly. So, the 8 Mile shit. So, I found that I've been constantly waiting for someone to boo me or to tell me that they hated my stuff, and it's not happened in I've been done probably over 500 shows now.
No one walked out?
There has been a person recently on the Gold Coast, an old fella got up and walked out, but no one's booed me or like told me that they really hated my stuff, which is good. And that would stick with you a lot more. You could have 100 people tell you how good your show was, and just one person telling you that you're a fuckwit, and that's the one that sticks with you. But it hasn't happened. I've been waiting.
What I love about Luke is like if people walk in late or people leave, he puts that into his show as well. Like he incorporates that in. It's funny.
Yeah, he's great.
Fucking amazing. You'll be there one day, mate. I reckon you have your own shows.
We'll see.
Everything's happening. The small dick joke get laughed at as well. And did it impact your manhood when someone goes?
No, I thought it was funny. So what happened was the Raptor squad started smashing through my front door with a battering ram, and I ran upstairs and started flushing drugs down the toilet. And then they made it through the door, and they started charging up the stairs, and I ran and hid behind the bedroom door. And then they came and they found me, and they threw me to the ground. They pinned me down, and they said, "Stay down, you fat bastard! You got a tiny cock." And it was just like so funny because I had pants on. How do they know that I? Are
you processing what's happening, or are you just like, what the fuck?
Not really. I was just like, fuck. But then there's obviously all this stuff because it was just a wild event, all stuck with me. So then when I was writing jokes in prison, I'm like, how did he know I have a tiny cock? They must have had me under surveillance.
It's in his shower or something,
And they must have been watching me for a while if they knew I had a tiny cock. So. Yeah, that's sometimes those jokes kind of wrote themselves.
Man, this has been a good conversation. I'll put all your links and stuff below. You said you have a show coming up, but by the time this is released, they'll be done.
Yep.
And you have no other kind of plans for the end of the year?
I have no set shows for any solo shows, but I'm gigging all the time. So if people want to follow me on social media, it's just Andrew Hamilton Comedy on Instagram or TikTok, and I post about my gigs there. And I'm sure I'll be doing some other shows around town.
And all in the city area that you're doing, or coming out west?
All over. Yeah, I just did a gig in Panania on Wednesday night. I do gigs in Campbelltown, Penrith sometimes, but most of them are inner Sydney, like Potts Point, Surrey Hills, Newtown. But it's all over.
When you come to Penrith, I have to come out.
Man, there's a place here called the Log Cabin, I think.
Yeah.
And the Joan.
I haven't heard of the Joan.
The Joan Theatre.
Yeah.
That's in Penrith as well. They're two that I've done around here, but it's been a while since my last Penrith gig.
You have to come back. There's a wild crowd out here.
They're awesome crowd. Mate, the further west we go, the more they like my prison jokes. Probably because they half their cousin and their barber and their mechanic have all done jail time, so people are like, oh, this is relatable. But, the further west I go, the more my dumb jokes about going to prison seem to hit.
Where's your favourite place to perform?
Probably either Western Sydney or Newcastle.
Yeah, okay.
And I had a really good time in Perth recently. Those crowds are awesome. So, yeah, I love all of them.
Mate, we have a closing tradition on the podcast where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest without knowing who it is. I don't answer this one, but like, are you genuinely happy? Why or why not?
I think you just asked me at the start of the podcast. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. I always say to people, I am a broke comedian living with my parents, and I'm happier than I've ever been.
Mate, thank you. I can feel the energy. I feel everything that you're doing, man, and I know I'm excited to follow the journey.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Much love.